Welcome to our tutorial on Azure HDInsight, Microsoft's fully managed cloud service that makes it easy to process big data using popular open-source frameworks like Apache Hadoop, Spark, and more. In this video, we will explore how to set up and utilize Azure HDInsight for your big data solutions. Before diving into the code, let's understand what Azure HDInsight is. HDInsight is a cloud-based distribution of Hadoop components that allows you to run big data workloads in the cloud. It supports various frameworks including Spark, Hive, and Kafka, ensuring versatility and ease of use. To get started, you will need an Azure account. Sign up at azure.microsoft.com and create a free account if you haven't done so. Once your account is ready, log into the Azure portal. In the Azure portal, search for HDInsight in the search bar. Click on Create to start setting up your HDInsight cluster. The first step in creating your cluster is to choose the subscription and resource group. A resource group is a container that holds related resources for an Azure solution. You can create a new resource group or select an existing one here. Next, specify the cluster name and choose the cluster type. For this tutorial, we will select Apache Spark. Choose the latest version available to take advantage of the new features and improvements. Now, select your region. It's best to choose a region that is closest to your users to reduce latency. Then, you will see the cluster size section. Here, select the number of worker nodes based on your data processing needs. A common configuration for testing purposes is 2 worker nodes. In the cluster configuration section, you can configure the head node and worker node sizes. Azure offers various VM sizes. For starters, we can go with the standard v2 for both head and worker nodes. It provides a balance between performance and cost. Next, we need to secure our cluster. Choose a method for cluster security. For this tutorial, we will go with SSH authentication. Here, set the username and password for accessing your cluster. Make a note of these credentials as you will need them later. After configuring the security settings, click on the Review plus Create button. Azure will validate your configurations. If everything is correct, click Create. It may take a few minutes for Azure to provision your HDInsight cluster. Once your cluster is deployed successfully, navigate to the cluster dashboard. You'll find various options to manage your cluster, monitor performance metrics, and access services. Now let's connect to the cluster via SSH. Open your terminal or command prompt. Use the following command to establish an SSH connection. Replace username, cluster name, and region with your actual values. Once connected, you can start running Spark jobs. We'll demonstrate how to submit a basic Spark job. Let's create a simple example that counts the number of words in a text file. First, create a directory in your home folder and navigate into it. Then, create a text file with some sample content. Use the following commands. Add some text into sample.txt. For instance, Azure HDInsight is a cloud service that makes it easy to process big data using popular open-source frameworks. Then save the file and exit the editor. Next, let's write a Spark job in Java to count the words in this file. Create a new Java file called wordcount.java. Now you can compile and run your Spark job. First, compile the Java file using the following command. Once compiled, you can submit your job to Spark using Spark submit command. Make sure the required jars are included in the class path. Once the job completes, you will see the output of the word count in your terminal. This basic example demonstrates how to leverage Azure HDInsight to execute Spark jobs and process big data. In addition to processing data with Spark, HDInsight also allows you to use Hive for SQL-based querying. If you're familiar with SQL, you can run Hive queries directly from the cluster. To run a Hive query, you can create a new Hive file, say query.hql, where you define your SQL statements. For instance, here's a query to create a table. To execute this Hive script in HDInsight, you can use the Hive shell with the following command. Azure HDInsight also supports integrating other Azure services. For example, you can use Azure Blob Storage for data storage. This allows you to store large datasets effectively and access them seamlessly in your HDInsight clusters. To set up Azure Blob Storage, you need to create a storage account. In the Azure portal, search for Storage Accounts and click on Create. Fill in the necessary details like subscription, resource group, and name the storage account. Ensure that you choose the right performance and replication options based on your workload needs. After creating the storage account, you can easily upload your data to blob storage using Azure Storage Explorer or directly from the Azure portal. Here's a simple command to copy a local file to your Azure Blob Storage. After transferring your data to Azure Blob Storage, you can access it in your HDInsight cluster using the UWASP protocol. For example, to read a text file directly from Blob Storage into Spark, you can use. Let's also briefly cover monitoring and troubleshooting. Azure HDInsight integrates with Azure Monitor and Azure Log Analytics, enabling you to keep an eye on the performance and health of your cluster. You can set up alerts and dashboards to receive notifications about any potential issues. Finally, once you've completed your work, ensure to stop or delete your HDInsight cluster to avoid unnecessary charges. You can easily do this in the Azure portal by selecting your cluster and clicking on Delete. Thank you for coming along on this journey through Azure HDInsight. To recap, we covered how to set up an HDInsight cluster, execute Spark jobs, work with Hive, integrate Azure Blob Storage, and monitor our resources effectively. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content on big data solutions and cloud technologies. If you have questions or topics you'd like us to cover next, leave a comment below.